Hi YouTube, Brian Phillips again. We have an unboxing today. It's crazy windy. Camera crew, show the people at home.
That's our fan that's not actually on. That's how windy it is.
It's crazy windy. The trees are swaying to and fro, and it's beautiful springtime weather. So we are going to open this thing, and I think I know what it is, but honestly, I actually have no clue because I can't see in it, and I'm a little nervous about unboxing this.
Oh, it was the handle.
Look, they wrapped it. Nice. Yes, it's switchable 3G. Look, 3D, 6G. Oh, awesome. It's a K130 helicopter. This is by XK. And let me tell you something, folks. When you get an XK product, okay, there's a million marketers. You should check the link below. You can buy one from Banggood, help support the channel with your 33-cent contribution or whatever it is, I don't know. This thing is gonna be nice. This is one of the nicer helicopters that I've reviewed. We've done a bunch of them. I'm excited to see it. So without further ado, you're gonna open it right now. XK does an awesome job of packaging. It's got an instruction manual that's mostly in Chinglish, and there is a second remote manual. I'm not really sure why that is. I think it's just because they package these together. So you get the 2.4 gigahertz radio. Of course, we'll just pop that out. I like the way they package this stuff, guys. It's got a bag around it. It's got, oh wow.
Your favorite. There's like multiple.
There's more. Whoa.
Oh my goodness.
Whoa, they're bigger than usual.
Wow.
Yeah, those ones are big.
Your lucky day.
Here's better. Those in the stack. Oh, so you know what? This looks like the other XK. Now this is what's crazy, guys. This is a ready to fly heli. Okay, so spring return, and then this is throttle, or you know, then your yaw control. But there's also tensioners, so you can provide additional strap tension on those, so it will feel more high quality, which I love that. And then these things are awesome for wheels on, you know, planes that you're building. My wife loves them. Or
like other people, normal people, you could just throw them away.
You could throw them away if you're into that sort of thing, but I'm not. But this is what gets me, is like you get this, there's plastic that's glued onto the bottom of a cardboard box. I mean, it's just like, who does that? So I'm not sure. That's why I'm always really impressed with XK products, because they do things like that. And you don't see that with other brands and other manufacturers, even the Verizon Bobbies of the world. Although I do like them too. Okay, so this is the parts kit. You're probably thinking, Brian, open the helicopter already. And I'd be like, get to the chopper. Okay. Oh wow, that was so,
that was all that was in
like
that bag.
Or the box. It was like one little thing in here. Okay, so it came with this. You know, looks like a pretty disappointing charger, but to be honest with you, I found them work nicely. You need a balanced charger to charge a 2S pack. So you can tell it's a 2S charger because it's 7.4 volts. What is that, 2,000 milliamp hours? Wow, 2,000 milliamps. And not milliamp hours. Milliamp hours is a discharge rate because it includes the time. And then we have some spare blades. Looks like a spare gear, and then a couple of linkages and a tail rotor, and then a ultra small Chinese hand sized screwdriver. And this is the moment you've all been waiting for. The K130. I can't wait to see this thing. It looks like it's got metal parts on it. You don't want to crash into your countertop with that. Just saying.
At least don't let your wife see.
Yeah, unless she's filming. And then she'll have to see. Okay, so we're gonna tape down this end. Okay, so we'll just... Okay, so this is... I don't know why XK does this. They go through all this trouble to make this awesome packaging. Oh, good lordy. Good lordy. And then they use plastic, which is so weird. And yet it holds up so well. Oh, it's another EC30.
Oh yeah.
I'm not a big fan of that connector for one reason, and that is I only have two of them, and they're both the same gender. So I have no real easy way of charging them. I had to build one. I'll show you what I did. Of course, you could just use the provided charger, but I'm gonna use a better charger. So this is nice. Nice packaging, seems to protect it. Oh wow, look at that. Look at that. It's metal. What the heck? It's metal, it's aluminum. I think it's aluminum. It might be gold. So this is the body is thick too, look at this. Usually that stuff is chintzy and thin and it's painted silver on the inside. That's really cool. I've already lost one of the grommets that look like. Here it is, guys. Oh, brushless motor, awesome. Looks like a brushed motor on the back. Not real excited about that. Carbon fiber tail boom, that's awesome. Little crappy servos. These are junk, but that's okay because hopefully you won't need to move them very much to do what you're gonna do with this. Look at that mechanism, it's so nice for being small. And then you can see this here, guys, where the brushless motor gets its power from the ESC, which is looks like the ESC is mounted directly underneath this body. That's awesome. I don't exactly know what's going on with this. There's your antenna, guys. The antenna is integral to the board. You can see the trace that's on top of the silicone layer there. See how it's golden looking there? That probably actually is gold. So obviously that's gonna turn this. That's the gear that came in the spare kit. And I say those servos are crappy just because they are. So you see this, guys? There's your grommet. You're probably gonna have that happen at some point on any helicopter you get. So the easiest way to get those back in is to do it before you play with it next. I've always had an easier time doing it like this than to stick it on that plastic little piece there and then try to reassemble it. I always have a hard time when I do it that way. Man, it's not very easy to get these suckers in here, though, I can tell you that.
Need longer fingernails.
Nah, no, this is fine. So basically, I'm gonna get that in there and then we'll come right back. All right, so we got the little grommet thing in, that was fun. You just kind of have to squish it and put it in there. It's really hard to film because my fingers block the whole thing. So this is the Heli. It looks awesome. I've got a handful of these XK helicopters. I've been very happy with every single one of them. So the battery, as you can see, I marked it just now. It says K130. This is a 600 milliamp 2S pack with a XT30 connector, which is really awesome. And then a Hextronics 2-cell balance charge port. And so as you can see, we marked the back of this K130 Heli, and then I got to put in 6 AA's. So when they say things like, where does it say? What did it say? 100% ready to fly. Well, maybe not 100% because you got to put your own AA's in. So I've got these AA's. Flat goes to the spring side. And to be honest, guys, this probably would not be, without some level of expertise, the best helicopter to fly in your living room because it's got metal parts on it. But these are plastic, okay? So when they hit your face, it'll hurt really, really bad. So you may not want to do that. I'm just suggesting that. It's all up to you, though. I'm not saying I won't do it. Okay, so now that the radio's in there, the biggest thing is for safety reasons, you always gotta have that stick down. These are nice. They're sharp. Do you feel that? Camera crew, feel it. It's sharp.
There, there.
That's good. Sharp is good because then it bites your thumbs. Now, if you're pincer grip, then you don't care about that. But I don't know about pincer grip. We're gonna charge this battery.
Tell us how you really feel.
No, I don't want to alienate my crew. So, I found while we were off camera, got this Asus charger. USB charger, nothing special. This is rated, show the people at home what we're doing here. This is rated at 5.2 volts output at 1.35 amps. And of course the input, since we're in North America, is 100 through 240 volts at approximately 50 to 60 hertz. Okay. At 0.25 amps. So it draws very little power in, and then it bridge rectifies it. Then you stick this thing in there after it rectifies it. And then you plug it in the wall outlet. It's very complicated. And then this thing charges your battery. Now, you obviously are going to be charging on the balanced charge plug. If you know anything about LiPo batteries, this is the most dangerous part of the proposition other than maybe hitting yourself in the face with that thing. So don't do either of those. Don't have problems with your batteries. The way you don't have problems with your batteries, see this little flashing light? That's how you can tell it's got some power to it. You're gonna put those keys, line up the keys there, see? It'll only go one way. And then this is gonna monitor the charge on each of the cells, okay? There's 2 cells that are in series. That's why it's called a 2S and not a 2C. C is a different rating on LiPos. So this is gonna charge. So we'll actually unplug that now. And then we will use this little voltage alarm, which is also gonna tell us the voltage of each cell. 2 cells, 7.87, 3.94, and 3.92. So we're a little bit out of balance, not a big deal. Some people will get really excited about being out of balance. The reason it's bad to be out of balance is that you want them to be at 4.2 volts full charge. So one gets to 4.2 and one's below. And then the discharge, it has to stop charging this one to bring the other one up. So it is a little bit hard during the charging cycle. If you have a large disparity, then your charger, your cheap Chinese chargers, they all come from China, by the way, they end up basically overwhelming the circuit, and then the one cell becomes unstable and catches on fire and burns your house down. So don't do that. This is the cable that I built the last time I had one of these XT30s. So I just built drum connectors so I can use a proper charger. So I just stick this in the hole like that, and then I stick that in the hole like this. And then we have an XT60, okay? Then I slide that into my balance charger, and then I just slide this thing into the other end here, real carefully. And then I set this up. This is always hard to film, guys. So I'm gonna switch over to balance. 0.4 amps, we're gonna change that to 0.6 amps. If you wanna do 1C, I'm actually gonna go to like 0.3 and then 7.4 volts. I'm gonna start the charge sequence. Okay, now this is a common sense RC, but whatever. The one I got linked is the same exact style. And then you'll also notice this is the same exact style. This is the Hobby King, but you can get these things for, you know, less than $50. And then you can get one of these little boards that allows you to balance charge. You can get whatever style of connector you prefer. If you use EC3s or EC5s or whatever you like for your balance charge preference, you can get those. I use XT60s because that's where I got my start. You can also get them with banana jacks. So anyway, so this is charging, or this will be charging. So I'm gonna start it, and it's gonna ask me a question. I'm gonna say enter to acknowledge. I'm gonna walk over one screen and you can see the charges. See how they're kind of fluttering? Do you wanna give them a nice close view of that? Okay, so in just a few short hours, it won't be quite that long. It's gonna be charged and we'll be ready to fly with it. So what we're gonna do is you could obviously use the included charger, and I have nothing wrong with these. In fact, these things have been really nice. We got a variety of them.
And they're nice if you have younger kids, because then like our son just plugs it in and it's done. He doesn't have to think about.
Well, but you still have to be careful.
Yes.
Because these, like I said earlier, LiPos are the one thing that are, you know, could cause you some real harm. I mean, if you crash into yourself with that thing, it's not gonna be a fun day, but you're probably not gonna die. But if you burn your house down, your kids are sleeping, you're never gonna forgive yourself. So don't do stupid things, and you'll be just fine. Because it's really not that hard. You just put it on a non-flammable surface, and that's the biggest thing, because when these things go, it's just a big smoke ball. And then the smoke ball catches on fire. But it's very fast, because it's a small amount of stored energy. Okay, back to the fun part. So we've got this now. We can look at how awesome it is. Wow, that's really awesome, but it's not gonna be very fun until we have the battery. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna jump into the radio system. Turn on the radio, big blue light comes on. It shows all these different switch conditions. You've got a mode button, you've got a back button, and then you've got this scrolly button, and then you can push it as well. And then there's an arrow. See how that's like a high and a low rate. And then over here, you've got another switch. And over here, you got another switch. And over here, you got another switch. And see, this is the hold T, throttle hold. Must be like a throttle cut. And then dual rates, that's what this switch is supposed to do. See how it went to this dark screen? How do you wake that up? Hit the back button. Okay, so to get in the menu, you press mode. I believe you have to hold it. Okay, so now you can reverse your channels, or you can go to your dual rates and then you go to your Expo, then you can go to your Throttle Curve, then you can go to your Pitch Curve, and then you can go to your Gyro. Okay, so each of those, see how it says reverse, and then as you walk down the menu structure there, once you get to what you want to look at, so let's look at Throttle Curve, something that should be pretty simple. So this is referring to the stick position here. You see how it moved? Okay, so you can change which one you have highlighted, and then you can click into that one by pressing push, and then it'll walk into that, and you can change the value. So at 0, it's 0 output. At 2, it's going to be 40. At 3, it's going to be 50. At 4, it's going to be 60. At 5, it's going to be 70. And I believe you might be able to set up another point. But anyway, so that you could make a change if you wanted. So for instance, the reason that would matter on a helicopter is because a helicopter throttle is not necessarily, the speed by which the motor is turning is not necessarily directly proportional to what you want to do. The pitch of the blades is what produces the lift, and you can thus fly upside down by changing the pitch opposite. Now, I'm not going to do that because I'm not that good of a pilot, but the guys that fly these things can do that every day of the week. So then, of course, you've got the pitch curve. Now, this is where you're going to have, you'll notice it's at 40. So at position 1, that's still dependent on this stick, okay? It's going to be 40. Then it's going to go to 45 at about 2 times, what is that, like 100 divided by 5. So 2 times, it'll be 20%. Then at 50%, it's going to be at 50% pitch. At 80%, it's going to be 60% pitch. And at all the way at near 100%, it's going to be 70% pitch. So that's a pretty big differential as you go through that sweep on this stick. And you can test that with your throttle hold on. You can see where the pitch is going to be based on the stick position too. Of course, we don't have a battery in there, so it's kind of hard to do that. So now the other thing you can do is you can go into your Expo. So we'll click into that. So there's 3 channels here present. So one of them is going to be your yaw axis. One of them is going to be your pitch axis. So that's like tipping the helicopter forward or backward. And then one's going to be your roll axis, okay? So rolling the helicopter like this. Pitch and then yaw, okay? So obviously, if you want to play with that, you can click into that value and then you can make a change. So it's at 0. Now what you want to see is, watch this. When I do this, it's going to have another rate associated to the switch condition. So if you go down to the second switch, you can change that to another condition. Okay, I'm going to put it to the, I would normally call that like a high rate, and then I would call that like a low rate, but really I think it's opposite is the way it comes from XK. That's a preference thing, by the way, guys. Okay, so there is channel 2. Looks like there's no Expo set up at all. And then channel 4 looks like no Expo at all. And you can do reverse Expo too. So we're going to talk about Expo for a second. You know, since everybody's already sleeping, we'll get that out of the way. Expo is a little bit hard to explain to somebody who doesn't fly a lot, but think of it this way. When you pull on the stick, okay, so let's say that this stick is your, you know, you're flying your little airplane or your helicopter, and you pull back, it's gonna make it go like this, right? And then when you push forward, it's gonna make it go like that, correct? This is on a mode 2 transmitter for North America. In Asia, it's the other way around, it's a mode 1. Okay, so you tip and it rolls. Exponential, or Expo, is going to change the amount of output based on the position of your thumb or your stick there, okay? So show them here. So let's say that this is 0, and this is minus 100, and this is plus 100, okay? And then this is 0, and this is minus 100 and plus 100. Now, just for easy figuring, let's say that you move this down 25%. You expect to have 25% output. Let's say you move it down 50%. You expect to have 50% output. You move it down, that's 100% output. Now you can do some mixing, but just aside from mixing, Expo is gonna make it so that when you move the stick down 10%, you're gonna have almost no output. And then when you move it down to 30%, there's just a little bit more. Then when you get to 50, it's pretty much full bore output. And then you get to 100 and you have 100% output. And it makes a curve response on the bottom and the top. Now with a more sophisticated radio system, you can change that output throttle curve, or not throttle curve, the output curve on any channel you want. This one's maybe not going to be quite so sophisticated. So you have a symmetrical Expo.
And why would you want to do that?
The reason you'd want to do it is because when you're working in the middle of the sticks, your thumb can only do so much, and your pincer grip, sorry for you if you do that, but if you the pincer grip, you only have a finite amount of control in your fingers. So what I think of, people say it deadens the middle of the stick. Okay, yeah, but what it does for me is it allows me to give full control without doing a dual rate. Like a dual rate means at 100% output, I move the stick all the way to the top and I have full control. Okay, it goes all the way as far as it can go, as that servo would travel. It's gonna go all the way that way. Then when I move the stick back, it's gonna go all the way back. Well, you end up with this herky-jerky, really hard to control thing. Well, most people that are learning to fly have a really hard time with that because they tend to over-control the model. But hey, when you're about to hit a tree, or your kid, or your side of your house, or the neighbor's house, or whatever it is, a school bus, the hospital, the power lines, and you pull back on that thing, you want it to stop like right then. You don't care if you break something, you just want to stop it, right? Well, I do too. The Expo allows you to have that sensitive or the insensitivity in the middle that allows you to have some precision control while you're flying. So that's why people use it. This is going to be super touchy when I get it flying because there's nothing set up right now. So I'll show you what I set up, but please guys, Expo is extremely subjective. So if you want to do less Expo than I do, great. I'm probably going to run my Expo high. In fact, I would like to try it now, but I don't know how this is going to come out of the box. So we'll try it first once we've had a chance to maybe not crash it in my face. So that's where you set it up though, for each of these particular channels. Now, which channel is which? I am not 100% sure. I think this is probably the yaw axis because you can see it move, but you can see these move too. And that's one of the things you get on this radio system that's super nice is you see the output relative to the stick position. That means that you're getting a really pretty high quality radio system. Even on the other XK products that we've recently reviewed, for instance, the Sky King, it came with a radio system that works great. It's a ready to fly. But just look at the difference, guys. It's just not even, it's not the same, you know? It's not nearly as nice. It's not as sophisticated, but you still have an output. You see the percentages? But look at the difference in percentages. You know, there's just not that much precision there. Still very good. I mean, for like less than 70 bucks, I think shipped, it's amazing what you can get. And then if you juxtapose that to, like this $1,000+ radio system, I have really good control and I can see all of it, but that doesn't make you a better pilot. It just means you have a little bit better chance at success. So this is great. Let's check our battery. Look at this, we're at 4.1 volts and we're at 4.2 volts on this little battery. So you can see, now what I'm gonna do is because we have places to be and people to see, come look at this guys. I'm gonna charge this at faster than 1C, or excuse me, this is about half C, 1/2 of a C. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that up to 1.2 amps. That's about double, so about 2C. Now, if you really wanna get sophisticated on these chargers, you can also put a temperature probe. And you guys all know, we like to play with the probes. But you put that probe right on the battery, and then you can basically make a safety check. See, this says temp sensor. You can actually stop the charger if it were to get hot. And generally speaking, things that catch on fire are hot. Is that not true?
Generally speaking.
Okay, so we're gonna let that charge for a minute. We'll come right back and we're gonna put some of this stuff into practice for you at home. Okay, so in reading the manual, that's the battery. We were just thinking of what we could do while we were waiting for the battery to charge. And I was like, well, I'll just read the manual. And I was amazingly, pleasantly surprised. I've never seen anything like this in a ready to fly. Check this out, guys. First of all, I already kind of knew this was a Futaba S-FHSS Futaba. I'm just gonna show you this. This is so cool. It's capable of DSM. So DSM-X, DSM-2. And what it's got here is it's got the satellite receiver socket for expansion. So basically you can use a satellite receiver here, but there's 4 pins one of the pins is 5 volts, and then one of the pins is 3.3 volts. So 3.3 volts is suitable for DSM-X, DSM-2, but then the 5 volts is suitable for Futaba S-Bus. So, but why would you use Futaba S-Bus when you could just bind it to your Futaba radio, which this is a multi-protocol radio. This is called the Jumper T8 SG. So this is obviously going to be a programmable radio system, but these are pretty good. Like I would probably almost just use this because it's so easy to use. But if you want to do something more sophisticated, or if you got bells and whistles on here, better antennas, things like this, extra power, you might like this better. But I just bring that up because it should bind to it immediately, and this is the bind button right here, guys. So you're going to press that and the lights will flash and do all sorts of fun things. And then once it accepts the code, then it's going to go to solid lights, and then you can move your sticks around and make sure. But the big thing is, since this is a helicopter, if you do it wrong, you'll just want to be careful that it doesn't start spinning on you. So I've always tried to hold them if I'm binding them. So the other thing too I noticed is it's just amazing that they actually show you what each of the pins does. That is really uncommon. So obviously they put a lot of thought into this, and then they designate exactly what's being used. You'll notice that there's a 7-channel switch here. There is no switch in place here. And then this is the 8th channel switch. So obviously that's not in place on this particular option. So I don't know if they offered one with another radio system. But at any rate, that means that there's a high likelihood that there's actually additional channels in here that just haven't actually been used. So if you want to use them, you can figure it out. I don't want to waste my time on it because I'm not going to do that. If this was an airplane, I might consider it, but this is a helicopter. And then also it talks about the mode 1, mode 2. So of course this is mode 1, this is mode 2. The one that I'm reviewing today is a mode 2 because I'm in North America. So if you're in an Asian market, then there's a good chance you could have a mode 1. And I believe you can switch them on this. So lots of good things. We're gonna get the battery and we'll show you exactly what type of charge we have now and how fast it went. What would you say that took, camera crew? Like 15, 20 minutes?
Yeah, maybe. I'm not quite.
It's not even warm to the touch. That's always a good sign.
Cool.
So you can see we're 4.2. Okay, so first thing I do, the way I did this is I unplug that, and then I can go ahead and unplug one or the other. And then the correct way would be to just build the XT30 end. But we're gonna go ahead and plug this into the voltage alarm quick and test the voltage. If you don't have one of these, they're invaluable. They're very cheap. They're just a couple bucks. If there's one thing you can do to make your life easier, so you notice it's not quite 4.2, but that's what the charger thought it was. So we're gonna use this right now. If you don't have one of those voltage alarms, just get one. They're like $5. You need to have one. It's super nice. It's very handy. It will save you a plane at some point, I promise you. So these batteries in helis are sometimes a little bit challenging because you're not sure which way you want to ram it in. But I can assure you that it will fit. It's just more a matter of you have to be a little bit careful about where your leads are going to end up being when you're done ramming it, okay? So the drawing inside the book shows it going in from the back. You want to stick it from the rear, just like that.
That doesn't usually work though.
I know. So then this here, this is the balance charge lead. I'm going to try to tuck it somewhere. You just don't want it to get in these gears, okay, guys? It's not so much about like a center of gravity thing or anything like that. I'm actually just going to kind of leave it here probably. That's probably the safest place for it because it can't really get up into the gears unless you would crash into something that's small enough to fit. Okay, so additionally, as with all radio systems, you want to have the radio on first, stick down, and then you can look at this. You see how that says 57?
Nope, hold on.
And it's changing to go up and down with the throttle. See how now that turns dark when I flip this switch? See how it's not? And then when I flip it, it goes up. That's the throttle cut. So I want the throttle cut on so as to prevent this thing from spinning. Okay, we're gonna put this manual out of the way because it's gonna get blown off the counter. And before I go ahead and plug in my battery, I'm gonna get this cover back on. These covers can sometimes be a little bit of a pain. This is a pretty high quality helicopter. So you just basically line up the little thing and you stuff it in a hole. It's not really complicated. Once you get it in there, then the rubber will make a nice little vibration resistant hold. And it's very sleek and pretty. That is a really nice looking heli. Should we weigh this thing all up quick so that people at home know how much it weighs?
Sure.
Okay, we're gonna weigh it so you guys know how much it weighs. Because if it's below 250 grams, then you don't need to involve the FAA. Booyah! You don't need to do the UAS stuff, which is nice. But check your local authorities to make sure that they haven't ruined your day yet. The FAA got 50,000 plus comments on remote ID. Hopefully most of them were negative.
Hopefully all of them were
But we'll see,
negative.
because I'm just kind of waiting for them to implement that policy next week. We'll see. Maybe they'll wait till Christmas next year to tell us about it. Because that was an awesome little Christmas present from the federal government. Okay, plugging it in, you want to have it level. I didn't quite get all the way in there. Oh, there we go. So now the XT30 is plugged in. Now we can check for controls. Just like an airplane, you want to check. See how it kind of tips them that way? Then it tips them the other way, and then it tips it back, then it tips it forward. You hear that?
Mm-hmm.
That might not be so good. We'll find out. Throttle cuts off. It hasn't started spinning. Now it started spinning. Spins up. Now if you show down here, see kind of the angle where you can see the blades? Spinning it slow, you'll see it. Ooh, that's kind of crazy. So we're gonna be a little bit careful with this one. But we're gonna still take it off right now and see how it does. See, that's what makes me nervous, is it gets crazy like that. So I'm gonna put the throttle cut on and I'm gonna test it. Okay, so here's what's going on, guys. I'll show you what's going on. You remember how we have throttle curves? So if you press and hold mode and you bring that up, see it says reverse, then dual rates, then Expo, then throttle curve. So we're gonna go to throttle curve and we're gonna look at 1, then it goes up to 40. Then it goes to 50, then it goes to 60, then it goes to 70. See, I'm not a great heli pilot, so I'm gonna actually reduce this quite a bit to 60. Then I'm gonna go to, so this is 100%. This is 80% of the stick position. That was 60, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm gonna put that to like, 55. Then I'm gonna go to 3, and I'm gonna aggressively drop it to like 35. And then I'm gonna go to 2, and I'm gonna aggressively even still drop that to about half. So 17 compared to 0. Okay, so it goes from 0, then to 17, then to 35, then to 55, then to 60. You see what I did there, camera crew?
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm gonna go back.
The blue screen's killing me, sorry.
I'm sorry. Okay, so just to kind of keep this away from us, we're gonna throttle cuts off. Now watch, see how it doesn't like jump all weird now? See how it just barely starts it up. Okay, so throttle cuts on. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back in here to mode. And then the pitch curve is the other one we'll have to play with later. So it starts at 0, then it goes to 17, then it goes to 35, then it goes to 55. I want to just 100% must just be crazy. I don't know what I'm gonna do about that. So then the other thing too is there's the 6G and then the 3D and 6G mode. So I want the auto leveling mode. So we're just gonna put this down on the floor.
Okay.
Just for extra safety reasons. Because I don't like the way it's doing that. Okay, so throttle cuts off. Okay, so bring it up to speed. You see that? Why does it go from like not moving to like crazy all of a sudden? Whoa, that's nice. Okay, so I don't know. There we go. Woo! That's a little freaky. Alright, so we're gonna pause it and try something. Okay, so we aired on the safe side there, just because this thing was spinning up, and what was happening is it was oscillating pretty bad, and so my throttle cuts on and been tested, But these things were pretty securely fixed, and when it was spinning up, I don't think it was allowing them to go out straight like this. And so that was the first conflict. The second conflict is you need to be up for 3G, or excuse me, for 6G, which is like your auto leveling assistance, and then down for 3D. So watch what happens to light conditions. So there's a red LED. I can move that.
Okay.
There's a red LED, that's in 3D, and that's 6G. So it'll be like a purple glow or a blue and red light. So those are two things I learned. And then the third thing I'm doing is, check this out, guys. So I'm going into mode. I've got my throttle cut on. I want to go into exponential, and I'm just gonna literally, I don't even care what axis it is. I'm gonna set up Expo at 30 on all of them. Like I said, I don't even know which axis is which. It doesn't matter. I want 30% Expo to start. And then again, like I was saying, if you want, you can do a second Expo rate that would be more or less. So I'll just set that one to like 45, which is a lot of Expo. Most heli pilots are not going to want that level of exponential. I do, because I'm an airplane pilot. Radio-controlled airplane pilot. Okay, so now we're going to try this again. Throttle cut's on. We'll just show you, it's spinning up still a little bit strange, and I'm not 100% sure what to think about it, but throttle cut's off. Coming up to speed, and then it kicks into this like high speed. And it's very not comforting, guys. So I'm not sure what to think of it yet, but then I put on my throttle cut and I test it. I think part of it might be just the pitch curve on this radio system. Okay, so the press and hold mode, walk down to throttle curve, pitch curve. So I changed my pitch curve down a little bit, and I think I've got it down too far. So I want to keep the pitch closer to like, show the people at home. See, I've turned these blades so you can really see the pitch, okay? So you can see we're at 0, so now watch what happens. So on step 1, that's 0, okay? Click into it, whoops. Click into it, and then see what happens. There's down, and then there's up, okay? So at 0 or 50%, that's the center position. So I'm gonna start at 50. Actually, I'm gonna be just below that. I'll be like 45. Then I'm gonna go to this one and I'm gonna set it to like 47. Then I'm gonna set this one to 50, and I'm gonna set this to 55, and I'm gonna set that to 60. So I have barely any change, and that's just one of the baby steps I'm gonna do. So throttle cut is on still. So now you can watch the pitch change as I move the stick. See, there's not hardly any change in pitch. Now, of course, it's exaggerated because you see the whole length of it. Okay, so we're gonna try that again. And my hope is, I think we might have been producing so much downward force at the 0 position that we would kick in and it would just load the motor. Okay, so throttle cut's off, spinning up. See, like I'm just finding this like sweet spot in the stick. And so I don't know if you guys can see that from what I'm doing, but so there's this like sweet spot where it goes from like something to nothing. You guys see that there? And it's not the most comforting change I've ever seen on a helicopter. And I am not in the idle up mode. So the idle up mode is where you actually would pull this back towards yourself, and throttle cut is on. So you'll notice there's no change. But what that's gonna do is that's gonna produce downward thrust when you're all the way at the bottom, and it's gonna produce upward thrust, or to lift you up. Okay, so we'll show you what that looks like. Here's your, I'm gonna spin it up a little bit and then switch to idle up. So now it's full speed, down. It's just a little bit scary to run that mode inside because it will shoot up to the ceiling and then shoot back down to the ground. I've got the throttle pitch and the pitch curve both set to where this is just like a baby helicopter, and it's just doing weird things at about 15% throttle stick position. So I'm gonna get up to about 30, and that kick up is what makes me nervous. I think I do that right there. and it's not coming off the ground. Throttle cuff's back on. I'm gonna try increasing the pitch a little bit. So I'm going into the pitch curve, and I'm going to change the pitch to like 60 at the fourth position and like 70 at the full position.
Can't see what's out legible.
So it's 45, then 47, then 50, then 60, then 70. Okay, so I'm hoping what'll happen is we'll get a little bit more pitch, so we'll pick up off the ground at a lower rate. Okay, so here we go. We need to move back just a little bit. And that is what I'm concerned about. So throttle cut's on. You'll notice it's tipping really bad. And it doesn't look like it right now, but I actually do know how to fly these helicopters. But I think there's something maybe not quite awry. The first thing I'm gonna suspect is that the gyros need to be calibrated. So throttle cut is on and tested. Down and out. So that re-associates the gyro, or recalibrates the gyro. We're gonna try this again. Maybe you just didn't know what home position was. Okay, so throttle cut's off. Way better. Oh yeah, buddy. That's it. That was my problem, guys. Still a little bit scary. Not a heli pilot, but that is really cool, and it is really freaking powerful. Oh my goodness.
I can feel it from here.
Yeah, I'm sure you can. So, now, the moral of the story is, throttle cut is on, and we are going to now play with settings. And then we're going to probably, because of our life, pause the video and come right back. But guys, don't forget to calibrate your gyro. That was my mistake. The manual did outline it. These were tight. I like them better loose, especially if it's like flying along and it goes like right into your couch.
I do want a new one of those.
Well, I'm gonna make sure I avoid the couch then. But the other thing too is I'm still noticing a fair amount of oscillation, and I'm also noticing a fair amount of warmth coming from the ESC. Feel it right there.
Yeah.
Feel it? Can you tell?
Yeah, it's warm.
So, I mean, that thing's getting warm and I'm barely even flying, guys. So makes me nervous. And by the way, this tail rotor is insanely powerful. Speaking of insane, those chickens. Show the people at home. Should I scare them? The chickens.
This is our crazy.
Get out of here! You want me to scare him?
No, she'll go. She knows.
No, she's challenging us. Get out of here! If you don't scare off your chickens, they'll crap everywhere.
I was gonna say, if you've never had chickens, they have zero bowel control.
Yes, it just goes
They're
everywhere.
like small children.
So we are gonna pause it and we'll come right back. All right, YouTube, we're back with the XK K130. Obviously, it's ready to fly. Comes with this, everything you need, but the batteries, 6 AA's. And it's got the 600 milliamp 2S pack in here. We started the video and we did the unboxing and build and setup, but now we're basically picking it back up about 4 or 5 days later. This thing was just a little bit unwieldy, and I think I figured out what my problems were, and I'll show you what I was doing wrong, or I'll show you how I ended up at least. So basically, we're gonna go into the mode. Reverse is all correct. Dual rates are corresponding to this switch, of course. So when you're up here, then that would be like the normal rate that I fly in. And then this would be like actually a higher rate in my case. So you can scroll in and change each of them and then push to save your changes. And you can scroll to the flashing one and it'll tell you what your setting is. I have them set to 65 or 80 respectively, okay? In my Expo settings, I have them set to 15, 15, and 15. They do not change with the high and low rates, which I thought they did, they don't. Throttle curve, I have set to 0, then 45, then 50, then 60, then 70. And then basically when you go to the idle up mode, it's gonna have a different setup, which is 75, 70, 70, 70, and 75. So basically when you have the stick all the way down, it's full throttle, and then it backs off a little, and then it's full throttle. So that helps with people that fly upside down, I believe. I don't do a lot of upside down flying in helicopters, I'm just not that good. Okay, then the pitch curve is set, same thing, when you flip the idle up mode, it changes to the idle up setting, okay? Or in this mode, you're on your regular throttle and pitch tied together. Okay, so 40, 9, then 55, then 60, then 65, then 70. Now in idle up, I went from 70 to 30. Now the rationale was 30, then 40, then 50, then 60, then 70. So that means at center, the blades are neutrally pitched, okay? And then when you get down here, you would be at 50, excuse me, you'd be at 40, then you would be at 30. So you'll have reverse thrust, or you'll be like upside down flying, and then you'll be at 70% throttle. And then you'll be at 70 throttle, and then you'll be at 70 throttle, and then you'll be at 70 throttle, and you'll be at 75 throttle, but it's gonna change the pitch to the opposite. So basically when you flip this thing upside down, the pitch is gonna be such that it's blowing air down, and it's producing this reverse lift so you can hover. And it's just gonna be depending on which direction your helicopter is sitting, your thrust will be produced. So anyway, I don't know if anybody's ever taken the time to explain that. Hopefully it's not boring you guys to death. And then the gyro, I changed my gyro setting. This one's a high and low. You gotta click into it though. So then it's 90 or 40. I set it up quite a bit from the default. And then the low gyro is 40. So this would be like your 6G mode. And this would, or excuse me, this would be your 6G, and then this would be your 3D. I would screw that up, sorry guys. So basically I fly in the auto leveling, more gyroscopic help, okay, mode. If you're doing 3D, you're probably gonna want a little bit of the gyro involved, just from other people doing this and saying what they say. So without further ado, the throttle cut is definitely here. And then of course we have it in my case, the low rates, but I like all my switches in a certain condition when I start. So we'll go ahead and plug this in. I'm gonna show you the other thing I did wrong. Throttle stick is down, throttle cut is on. You always wanna double check that on a heli. It's very hard for me to plug this in level. Some of you guys might not have that problem, but you'll notice as you go to manipulate this close plug that's on the heli, you're almost always gonna have to pick it up. So I've just learned the easiest thing to do is to just pick it up, plug it in, and plan on resetting your gyros. So I'm gonna show you resetting the gyros now. Okay, so you're gonna let it sit for a second, and then you're gonna bring it down like this. And then you'll notice it resets. Now watch. I've learned, for whatever reason, I gotta do it twice or this thing freaks out. So we're gonna take off and show you flying a little bit, and then we're probably gonna fly right outside. So we're not in idle up mode, obviously, here. So you notice how it's bouncing around and moving like crazy? Throttle cut's on. I've noticed it do that a couple of times, so what I will do is with throttle cut on and with it sitting stable and sitting still for a second, I'll recenter the gyros again. And I've just been doing it twice in close succession, and then it seems to behave nice. See how much better that is, guys? And you would have thought I didn't know what I was doing, and it's just, I think there might just be something a little bit glitchy about the firmware. So we're gonna go ahead and fly this thing outside, and we're gonna get our door assistant to get the door, and then we'll go ahead and get this thing out. Go ahead. Okay, you good, door assistant? Okay. So as you can see, we're outside. It's not as windy as it was the other day, but outside I feel a little bit less uncomfortable with it. And it's a really easy to control helicopter, but it's still a helicopter, which means I'm not super comfortable flying helicopters like I am with airplanes. Despite the fact that there's a pretty good amount of wind right now, it's not near as windy as it was last time. So you're gonna notice, I mean, all I'm having to do is basically just kind of keep it where I want it. I mean, you don't do that with you can't not look at a helicopter, okay guys? See that? So that's pretty amazing. The sophistication and the gyros on this thing are just glorious. So I'm gonna bring this thing a little bit closer here. And you'll notice I'm not really a super good heli pilot, as you can tell. And it's also not maybe the best conditions for flying this for a demo, but mostly because there's some wind coming off the side of the building here. So I'm gonna come over here to the driveway. And yes, you can go a lot faster. I don't even have my throttle. I don't even have my throttle on full output here, guys. So I could make this thing do crazy stuff if I wanted. Of course, I'm not that good of a pilot, and I don't want to crash this thing instantly. And I don't want to scare the camera crew. So basically, I'm going to take this out of the 3D mode, or out of the 6G mode here in a second. We'll go to idle up for a second. Make sure you got altitude when you do that, guys, because you can produce downward thrust. It does fly a whole lot more solid when you're in this idle up mode, because you have more speed on the cyclic, and everything is just moving around a lot more, so you have more gyroscopic effect naturally from the helicopter. So if I were a really good pilot right now, I could easily fly this upside down right at my feet, but I'm not. But I can still bring it up here. And that's about the full settings I've got there. That was not full throttle, it was about 75% throttle. As you can see, it's crazy amounts of power. I'll show you full throttle real quick here, full throttle. That is crazy. See why I didn't want to do this in the living room, guys? Mm-hmm. And by the way, you will notice that this little 2S pack gets a little bit annoyed with you by the time you're done. Thing I like about it now is that you have control, and you got to take it out of 6G in order to flip it upside down. Do you guys see that craziness?
That craziness?
We're gonna go find it.
Okay.
Okay, guys. We haven't touched it. Is that not incredible?
That's not bad.
Guys, you're used to seeing torture tests here on Brian Phillips YouTube, but this might be one of the worst. Notice my throttle cut is on, and it's tested. So let's go back to the driveway. We're gonna peel some of this hay off. That has got to be, obviously this schmutz is going to have to come off of here.
Do you want me to hold your radio?
Yeah, sure. So basically, I cannot believe that this thing did so good. That was a really bad crash. Oh my goodness. We'll see if any of this got broken. I just can't believe that. I mean, I've crashed a lot of helicopters in my day, a lot more than airplanes, except I've had a lot more airplanes. I take that back. I've crashed more airplanes, but not quite as devastatingly.
By percentage, though.
This is incredible. Look at this thing. It's like
Hold on, there's one more. There's under there.
What is going on? How is this thing not destroyed? Guys, that is crazy. And I know I'm probably speaking too soon. By the way, our cat was on the other side of the yard when it crashed. So I think we're okay there. I want to point into the wind. All right, this is crazy. All right, let's see if this thing works.
Shit.
Ooh. Ooh. Maybe it is broken. Let's check. Camera crew. Throttle cuts on. Oh, you know what? Look at that, the gear. That's so weird because they gave us a gear. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is incredible. I mean, just for the sake of torture testing, and it is a Phillips screwdriver that you need to get that gear set off.
I suppose that's it?
I don't know. Oh, look, this linkage popped. This linkage popped too.
Oh.
So that linkage will have to be reattached up here. So that's no big deal. That is incredible. When you put those linkages on, make sure they don't go into the gap. All right, I want to just see if I can get it to spin at all. It probably won't. Yeah, see, it's got the flat spots on the gear. Oh yeah, baby! With the screwed up gear and everything. And I must say, it's kind of loosey-goose right now. That is incredible. I cannot believe how crazy it is. And I want to show you guys something. What happened there was I came from this mode to that mode And look what happened. I somehow ended up in the gyro mode. So I don't think it was changing. See this? 39 compared to 90? I adjusted that while that was happening. Did I forget to exit the menu structure?
I don't know.
Let's try this again.
It's kind of chilly out here.
It is. But look at that, guys. The 6G is working. I cannot believe the resilience of this aircraft. I mean, obviously the gear is all screwed up. That is just incredible, guys. Okay, so we'll look at the gear again. Throttle cut is on, it's tested. I mean, that, you don't get a whole lot worse on a crash for a heli. Everything is intact. The only noise I'm hearing is that gear. That is just incredible. I'm really, really happy with this thing. I mean, usually you bend a shaft or you blow something up on the cyclic or whatever this stuff is. I'm sure there's some heli guy that's going to correct me on that. So please do so. I don't even know if we should do any more. Should we go get the other gear on there?
I don't know.
I don't think we need to. I think it's already proven itself.
Yeah.
I mean, this thing is crazy. If you could crash it like that and it still flies that good, this must be a well-manufactured thing. The battery didn't even squish. Nothing got damaged. Just can't believe it. I still, seeing is believing. I gotta see this again. This is just crazy, guys. None of the servos are screwed up. Look at this, those little crappy servos I was talking about. See that? We've got all the authority there still. Nothing's snapping, nothing's broken. All right, we're trying this again. Okay, so now I feel like...
Are you just losing battery potentially?
I think that might be part of it. But see, the one thing I'm noticing is that I feel like maybe I'm not getting as much forward authority. There's just that little blade of grass is all that's in there. Man, that's just incredible, guys. I just can't believe how well that performed. Luckily, we crashed into some tall grass. I think what we're gonna do is we'll throw that gear on and try it again. Okay, so we're inside, and first thing we're gonna do is I'm just gonna clean off this prop blade. I just can't believe that didn't get damaged worse than that.
I know.
So you got that cleaned off, so you don't want any debris on the blades, of course. And then the second thing that got damaged was I'm just trying to make sure that the motor isn't moving, and it's not. It's not moving free, and the gear set is okay. If I would have been quicker on the throttle, then that would have been avoided. So I'm going to use a provided crappy screwdriver to unscrew this. It's keyed, that shaft is keyed, hun. There's nothing the camera crew likes better than a keyed shaft. Isn't that correct?
Sure.
So we're just gonna go ahead and loosen that and hopefully let it fall out into our hand. Of course, it's not gonna wanna do that, so I'll have to get creative, like something like this. Get out of there. Maybe it'll just pull off. Nope. We're gonna have to grab some needle nose pliers. Or if you don't have needle nose pliers, you could use maybe like a pair of scissors or something. I was trying to use the tools that were provided just to make it easier on those of you guys who are watching this without maybe having a bunch of tools. So I'm gonna lay that down. This is the parts kit that came with it, by the way. It comes with some extra bushings for the plastic. Oh, that did pop off just a little bit. That might have been from me handling it though. So this is a brand new one. So you can see where the shaft is keyed right there. And so that goes downward, and then this slides up onto the bottom of the shaft. So we're gonna go ahead and pull it off. Like so. Get off of there. Wow, that's a tight fit. Jeez. Now watch what happens, guys. Look at this. See this? That has play now. That might explain why I was having problems with my elevator access was weak against the wind. I didn't feel like I had enough. I also have my rates down quite a bit, so if I turn the rates up, I would be able to overwhelm that wind impact as well. It's like I'm caught on something maybe a little bit. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna try to use a provided screwdriver first. If that doesn't work, I'll get a flat screwdriver. I'm gonna just put that head of the screwdriver in there. See if I can pry a little bit. See how that's moving? Downward. Okay, I could just pull up on this too to get a little bit more purchase. Oh yeah, that is a really nicely machined. I cannot believe how well that fared, guys. I've crashed a few helicopters in my day. See, there's a keeper there. You guys see that? On the shaft. Moves up and down free. That is totally straight. That is really good. I'm very impressed with that. I mean, the way an airplane recovers from a crash, in my opinion, especially on a ready to fly, speaks volumes about the quality. You can see the bearing in there. It's a nice bearing too. Very low resistance. Okay, so line up the keys. So you got that D shape there. Go ahead and slide that down. And then just line up your Ds. You don't want that whole thing to pop out of the bearing though. So you gotta kind of, I'm sure if you've done this before, you're probably a little better at it than I am. Okay, so I just spun the top of the rotor. Okay, and I'm gonna push this on. So now it's on there. But now I just need to get it to where the holes are lined up. You see that hole there, camera crew? So you can kind of see the...
Oh, yeah.
Yep, there's the hole. So you got to get that lined up. Then you can come back over to your screw, which, by the way, this is nice. The times I've replaced things like this, I usually use some crazy hex screw. And a hex drive screw would be okay too, because you could hold it on the tip of the hex drive or the Allen wrench a little bit easier. So now this will line up. We just got to be careful not to let it get sucked into that brushless motor. It's got strong magnets on it. Okay, so we're gonna get that started. Because if that drops down there if you go on the other side and you drop it down, it might get stuck to the side of the motor, and it's always awkward to get those out sometimes. Okay, so just keep going until it gets good penetration. You always want to make sure you get full penetration before you pull out. Okay, so that's there, right there, it's tight. And then I want to see like what kind of play we've got now that we've crashed. Show the people at home this here. See how I'm just moving these? I just want to see if anything is disjointed or decoupled, or if there's any pieces missing. Ooh, see that? That could explain some of my problem too. You see how that's in that little void? That's gonna make it really sloppy, okay? Where did my screwdriver go?
It's right here.
Oh, it disappeared on our counter. But you guys see this, how this is in the middle here instead of on the outside? Watch this. You gotta just lift that onto the ball joint.
Really?
Ooh, you know what? That one is broken. It's got a break on it.
Just like a split in the plastic?
Yeah. You could probably put a little CA on there if you wanted to, if you're like really ballsy. That's kind of what we're dealing with here, folks. So just looking at that play, like I said, you could probably get away with not replacing it, but I'm just going to go ahead and replace it anyway. And when I say replace it, I mean it's going to be like a 10-second endeavor. I don't even know if it's broken, to be honest. I want to see. Yeah, I think it might be broken. Okay. So let's show the people at home before we put this down. Can you guys tell when I do this? See how it opens up?
Oh, yep.
You see that?
Yep.
So, like I said, you could throw a bit of CA on there, and it would keep that thing closed. I mean, these things aren't very strong to begin with. So the way you install that is just super, super easy. You basically just use your thumb or your finger, your index finger, whichever you prefer, and you're just going to grab this and you're going to pop it on there. Oh, that's a lot tighter. Yeah, a lot tighter now. And then you're going to support this as you push it on. You know, it seems like the helicopter videos I do are more about how to fix the broken helicopter. But I'm just going to own it, because when you get into this hobby, guys, you're going to figure out really quick it's easy to crash this stuff. But with an airplane, I would have never crashed it in that environment. Okay, so now I'm just going to adjust manually, because I've got the battery out, obviously. I'm just going to move the servo. Ooh. See that, how that's allowed to move free? That's not maybe so good. Do you see that?
That's not good.
Yeah, you don't hear the servo doing anything, do you?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
The teeth on the servo might be blown out. I was just so excited about how well this thing performed in that crash. And to be honest with you, if we lost one servo gear set and one linkage, that would be an amazing recovery. Almost miraculous. Gosh, can you get the screwdriver through that hole? I don't think so. So the way you have to do that is you have to pop off the cap here. And then that's going to allow you to get at. This is really serviceable for being a small helicopter. I remember back when I had my CP1 years ago. I wasn't flying airplanes at the time, but I had a CP1, which was made by Blade. And I still have literally hundreds of dollars worth of spare parts for that thing. And I will probably never fly it because it was so hard to fly.
Do you still have that even?
Wait, yeah.
Or did we?
Did I give it to my Esteban, my Cameo?
You might have.
Well, either way, I had a lot of parts for it.
Yeah.
Because I was still not a very good RC helicopter pilot at the time.
That's a long time ago.
Okay, so we're just going to pop that out. I'm actually going to leave that on the body of the servo because you see that? See how that goes around it? So you're going to have to use an exact replacement or it's very likely not going to fit. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and just pull that ball joint off there. You see my concern, guys? Look at that. See how it's allowed to walk? You want to know what's wrong?
Gears are screwed up.
I don't know if it's just this loose or if the gears are screwed up. So I'm going to pull that out, that one screw, lay it aside. This is how you can tell. You can pull that off. See, that moves free-ish. That might explain the reluctance to behave in the wind. So now, the other way you can do this, you can either pull this wire back and then unplug the appropriate wire. There's one zip tie that has to get cut here to allow the wire to pass through. But if you really want to get in the weeds, what you can do is you can open up the servo. My camera crew was like, I thought you said we were going to put a gear on. Well, I thought we were too. Okay, so we're just going to pop all four of these off. And that's going to allow us to open up. Okay, so this is where all hell usually breaks loose. So you have to be a little bit careful because these gears are small on these things when they're dinky like this. So I'm just going to lay these on top of my parts kit. I'm going to put those out of the way. So we don't forget, we can take a close look at this and inspect how much it damaged. I basically didn't chop throttle in time, or more specifically, the firmware or the software in this flight controller doesn't actually allow the motor to stop quickly enough to completely preclude an accident like that from causing damage. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull this. I'm usually pretty good about chopping throttle when I know it's going downhill. But on a heli, you wanna produce reverse thrust. Okay, so you can see the gear in there, or you can see the grease in there. Can you see, camera crew? Mm-hmm. So now I'm gonna just spin this, and then look at that, guys. So there's the end stop, and there's the other end stop. You see what's going on? There's no gear right there. You see where the gear would be, camera crew?
Where?
Where would the gear be?
On that little peg there.
Right there, there should be a gear. See that?
Oh.
I believe that's where that would be. Oh, no. No, I lied. It's just not engaging over here. See? When this thing is driving, this little thing spins, this little motor spins, and it turns this gear, then it turns that gear, which is idling on a shaft. Then that little gear turns this gear, which then turns this gear, which then turns this gear, which then turns the output shaft.
That's ridiculous.
Yep, I know. Everybody wonders why these things cost like $3. I don't know how anybody could make this thing for $3.
So which one isn't engaging?
So then look, I think it's not engaging because I have the assembly pulled apart, okay? Because once you put this cap on it, then it's going to hold everything in place at a certain exact position. So So you see, but you see it's being allowed to spin free. That should not spin without this turning at least a little bit, okay? So then you can open this up and you can see the controller board. You can see 2 transistors here. There's a triac and a triac. And then these are the leads that head over to the motor and or the control circuitry. And then there's a trim, well, not a trim pot, but a potentiometer right here. And that potentiometer spins to give feedback to the pulse width modulation, and then you know the position of the servo. So, but in this case, it looks like we just have some teeth missing, probably in that position. So watch this, when I move this one by hand, it's gonna engage again. See how it's biting? You can hear that noise. See that? It won't let me spin it anymore. As soon as I get into that position, you can actually take these gear sets apart, usually, and see that? So then you can figure out which, you see down in there? See how that has like almost like a screwdriver on it, and that goes down into that potentiometer? So you can actually replace these parts on some of these servos, but in this case, I'm pretty sure this one has a tooth missing right there. Yep, there it is. You guys see that? How that tooth is missing?
I don't know if we can see that.
See how there's many teeth, many teeth, many teeth, many teeth, many teeth, and then the one missing right there. Boom.
Yep, no, I see it.
And there might be a second tooth. So that's what happens a lot of times when you have a servo that's trying to correct and when it's not allowed to then correct. So in this case, the way you can fix the servo is if you have another servo of the exact same size and the exact same gear ratios, then you can actually steal that gear off, and then you can just put it back together in this way. And the biggest thing is you have to allow it to get back to the home position. So the pulse width modulation, the feedback into the circuit, will bring the servo control arm back to its neutral position. So that when you move the stick, it'll move up. When you move the stick, it'll move back. But with that tooth broken, what's gonna happen is you're gonna get to a certain spot in the sweep on that servo output, and it's gonna basically no longer have purchase on the gear set. So it's gonna be allowed to idle, and unless some environmental impact pushes that back into the gear set, or you're moving fast enough that it skips the tooth and it continues, you're gonna potentially lose control at that spot. And that's what we were seeing. So unfortunately, one tooth on one gear kills the Heli. This is the life of a heli pilot. That sucks. But this helicopter does not. This thing is awesome. I can't believe it did so good. Usually what happens is the boom is broken, and then the lead that goes to the little tail motor is broken, and the next thing you know, you're buying that, which means you have to reassemble this whole frame. In this case, it's bolted together, which is amazing. Look at this, it's got a bite point here, and then this shaft is allowed to be bitten instead of glued. I always had to glue my CP1 together. It was horrible. You were supposed to be able to use some debonding agent to take the CA and make it weak. Never worked, ever. I always had to replace the whole body, so it was a complete rebuild every time I crashed. Very hard to learn like that, guys. This thing would be 100 times better. So I am super impressed with it, even notwithstanding this crash, which was clearly my fault. I just gotta go see if I can find another gear set and fix this thing. So thanks for watching, guys. I'm not gonna bore you with the rest of the details. I've probably already done that with the last 20 minutes of this video, but I am gonna go steal another servo from my basement pile of dead helicopters and planes. And I will see if I can fix this thing, and I'm gonna get this thing back in the air because it is a cool helicopter. Definitely check the description, and the link will help support the channel if you buy one from that link. And come back for more action. You know, you come here to Brian Phillips RC to see if the plane crashes and if it recovers. And clearly this one did not exactly recover, but it's still a pretty awesome helicopter. And if in the right hands, it would be an amazing helicopter. Thanks for watching. Come back for more. All right, guys, I pulled Brian Phillips, and we're gonna finish this repair now. I know I kind of led you to believe we were done, but come on in. So I've powered this up with another pack because the pack I was using is charging. And basically what I've done is I pulled out the mechanism. You can see that Phillips looking screw in there. That's the feedback, okay? And then this is, I found another servo, believe it or not, that's exactly the same, except it's only got 2 screws that come out the back and it's got this weird lead. And I was like, forget that. I'm just gonna steal the gear set out of it, okay? So you have to make sure they mesh up, but as you know, I already pulled this out. So this is the one that broke, okay? So you can tell this one's a little bit darker just because the manufacturing prowess or whatever, or older, crappier, faker, whatever. So you see how I'm pointing there, how it's broken? That's where it's broken, folks. You're gonna have to zoom there probably if you wanna see that. That is broken, guys. I'm gonna spin it so you can see. See how it's good? Bad.
Yep.
Now I'm gonna pull this whole gear set and see it's got this little bushing on it and everything. This is a little bit different than what I'm used to on the bigger servos. This has a fixed point there, okay? So as a result, I don't know if I'm gonna have to take these off or, yeah, see how that comes off there? That's a bushing as well, okay? So what you can do is you can actually probably peel this stuff off, but instead I'm just gonna take this whole assembly, which I freed just like I did on this servo. I just took it apart the same exact way and I just pulled it out. But since this Heli is powered up, you're thinking, well, why did you have to power it up to fix the servo? Well, here's why, guys. Look, this is all hooked up. So we've got roll. You hear that? And then of course the yaw axis. So this isn't spinning. Well, when I first started, of course, this position indicator was not centered, okay? So watch what happens when it's not centered. It just runs like crazy. So what you have to do is you have to find the center so it stops running, okay? See how it's just running a little bit? So now it's centered to where it's not, we can put this into its home position. Now, you see how there's a stop on there? On the gear set right off the end of my tip of my thumb? That stop needs to be so that it's not gonna immediately hit. Okay, to a certain extent, this stuff will self-center. Now would be the time where you could power it down, but I'm just gonna be super careful and do this, okay? So you want that gear away from you. See how it's just super easy to adjust it, guys. It's very sensitive. Okay, so I gotta be careful as I do this. And you could also just unplug the servo for this step too. Okay, so it's in there now. My fear is I'm gonna strip the gears on there. So I'm gonna unplug this for a minute. And then I have to get this other gear in here, which, ooh, look. That one has teeth missing too. Do you see that? See that?
Hold it. There you go.
Right there, there's a tooth missing, just one of them. And if I spin them, they all look good, they all look good, they all look good, they all look good, and then boom. So that one will go over to the dead servo. So here's our dead pile. So we need to steal this gear now. And as you can see, you can, upon close inspection, all the teeth are in place. Okay. So you're probably thinking, why don't you just get another servo? Because I don't want to undo that bundle of wire, to be honest. This is easier than undoing that wire. So this is where it gets tricky, guys. So now we're powered down. So I can just get a little bit creative about how I do this. I'm gonna actually set this gear into place. This one's just an idle, so it's not setting the position of the trim potentiometer or the potentiometer in there. I have a tendency of adding trim to potentiometer for some reason. Okay, so now I'm gonna push this together and that'll complete the assembly. Okay, so now it's together. Now, hopefully it will center itself properly, but we don't have any guarantees of that. So our radio's on, throttle cut is on, and stick is down, okay? Let it initiate. Now listen carefully, guys. Listen. Oh, yeah, look at that, see? Now look at the stops. Give them a close-up of the stop there, camera crew. Do you see the stop? Do you know what the stop is?
No, what am I looking for?
You're looking right here. There's that little pin.
Yep.
That pin on the servo gear, as long as it's not running into the other gears, you've got it centered. So now, real quick, we'll put this back together. and then you guys will get the complete start to finish. Check for gear teeth in this grease. Sometimes it gets stuck up here and it'll just cause it to break again. That's just grease. Okay, so I've had that happen a few times when I fix these. Believe it or not, guys, I've fixed servos. I'll pull wings apart and fix the servo in the aileron servos rather than trying to take an entire wire out the length of a plane, because it's just a lot easier. The other thing too is the output gear set is sometimes a little bit different. There's a different number of teeth sometimes on these, okay? So you'll notice I'm tightening these just partly. I'm not going all the way down. Once you get these things mostly tight, then you can just reaffirm that everything is working. And sometimes you have to grab the output shaft to see it move, get everything relaxed into its home position, the neutral position. If you have a lot of trim on your radio, you may have to center it at this point to get that right. And then just go ahead and torque these down to whatever you desire. I usually just go until it's kind of tight. Okay. There's not, I don't know the torque specs on them, but if you go too tight, you'll just break the case. So it's fine. You got 4 screws. And this is also a good opportunity for you to check the other servos to make sure they're not broken, which so far they've been solid. Haven't had a bit of problems. Okay. So you hear that noise? You hear that pulling on it to see if it moves. You guys see how that does not move at all.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So this is the output linkage. So I'm going to stick that on there for higher visibility. You hear that noise?
At the end.
So everything is okay there. You see how that motor's moving? When I do that, isn't that weird? See that?
Where?
See the motor moving? You know why that's moving? Because this moves the gear set just a little bit, okay? So don't freak out if you see that, that's normal. Okay, so now that noise you're hearing is the feedback circuit attempting to center it. Listen. I wouldn't lose any sleep over that because it's just trying to center it, and we are dinking around with it a lot. So now we need to know what position this is neutrally, okay? Dang it, that thing fell off. I was hoping it wouldn't fall off, because this servo needs to get back in how it was before, which should, I believe, be like this. Is that right? Yeah, actually, it might have been the other way. See, now I need to go back to the footage and see exactly how this went together, because normally you would mark it. So we are going to pause it, and I'll go verify what direction that needs to be.
Okay.
Okay, so the wire goes one way, the knob goes the other way. Now, sometimes you'll also find that when you replace these gears, this position, the absolute position for center, is not exactly the same. So you may have to trim it a little bit when you do this. Sometimes you get them exactly the same position too. It just depends on how lucky you are. And then this little mechanism, it went like this with the thin side forward. And that just kind of slides around the servo like this. Okay, like that there. And then there's one screw that we have to put in to lock the control arm on there. So we're going to get that in there. That's another spot where you sometimes will run into situations if you have a different servo that you're stealing parts out of. Now, before we hook this up, let's make sure it's working still. Okay, good. All right, awesome. That buzz. I think we're probably going to be okay on it. So I'm going to just run this hook through like that. I don't know if I have that right or if it's the other way. I think it'll work either way though. So then that hooks onto there. So you want to just push it on to the ball joint there. And then basically this thing needs to get screwed into the frame. And that gets screwed in over here. So let's make sure that things are going the right direction before we screw it in. Okay, so we'll have to test that here in a minute. Make sure the helicopter doesn't try to like take off backward or something crazy. So there's that screw. And if that happened, you would want to flip the servo over. Okay, so we got 2 screws to do here, and then we should be able to test. The other battery is actually done charging, so we'll just do a quick hover test to show you guys that it's working. And then we'll probably be done for today. But it's just like fixing these airplanes and helicopters. It's not, I wouldn't say it's exceptionally difficult, but it's just more a matter of having the patience to find the parts in your surplus of graveyard parts, if you have a surplus of graveyard parts like I do. And then of course, if you want, you can order the servos and all that stuff too. I just don't, I usually don't do that. I almost never do that. So, while we've got it together, which obviously we're not gonna fly it like this. Up, down, left, right. And what I usually do when I wanna see the changes in pitch. Ooh, you see that? Did you hear that?
Yeah.
That was not so good. So now I need to figure out which one is stuck. You guys hear that? This is why we test stuff. So that means we have one more servo that's found a spot where it doesn't like. Dang, what a bummer. The good news is it's fixable. The bad news is it needs fixed. Okay, so there you have it, guys. I thought we did pretty good in that crash. But as you can see, I did break gears on 2 of the servos of the 3. And I think I might have remembered saying something about crappy servos. These servos are just fine, but when crashed, most servos do tend to get a little bit of damage. And especially on a helicopter crash like that, there's just a lot of moving parts that have to be right. And if they're not right, it's not gonna fly safely, at least. So without further ado, we're gonna wrap this thing up and I'll see if I can get the servos. But for now, this thing is pretty amazing. I can't believe it did as well as it did. Replacing a couple of servos after a crash like that is to be expected. Thanks for watching, guys. Come back for more. So another Brian Phillips. These are all the dead parts we had. Basically the elevator servo, which you watched me repair, then the right servo. The similar gear set broke, the other one was good. Then there was a grommet on the body, which honestly, I don't know if that broke or if I just taken it off, it broke. And then the main gear, obviously you watched me fix that. Then there was one linkage, you watched me fix that. And then there was one small little dinky crack in the frame, so I just CA'd it together and that's solid now. And then I had just a little bit of trimming I had to do on the different axes to try to get that to kind of be correct, because the steps in this position versus this position of the servo was not quite enough. So really the best way to do that is to just do an electronic adjustment while you're flying, and then go ahead and shut it off, and you can manually just unplug this and twist it to where you want it on the linkage. So we'll go ahead and pop this cover on and show you a quick flight, just so you can see that it's fixed. I'm still, as much effort as that took to fix, I'm still extremely impressed with how well it fared, because that was a nasty crash and it was pretty much a full bore, full on crash. Helicopters that crash like that usually don't walk away, especially not with an intact body and an intact tail boom. That's almost always the first thing that breaks. Go ahead and just show you this, guys. Okay, throttle cuts off. We're gonna reset the gyro just to make sure nothing changed. We're gonna reset it again. Okay. Okay, reset it here. Oh shoot, unless the battery has decided to be dead.
Oh.
No, there it goes. Okay. solid flight performance. No bad behaviors that we didn't have before. As you can see, it's just as docile as the day it hadn't been crashed into a million pieces. And when I say a million pieces, I mean one. We'll go ahead and land it here for you. So basically, that's that. The last step I have to do, which is just really fine tuning, is to, like I said, take these servos and make sure that their position while in the throttle cut is nice and squared away. That's why you saw it kind of tip to the side when I started it up. And obviously the gear is doing very good. Everything sounds good. Everything looks good. It's pretty much back to new. And the only two parts that I took out of other inventory, well, I took some CA and kicker to fix that. That was, most of you guys should have that stuff around. And then of course I had two servos that just happened to be the same. They came out of a Decathlon airplane that I got that was shipped and it was damaged. So they ended up giving me money back, and I took the servos out of the wings because I never did actually make that plane. So that worked out great. Otherwise, guys, this is an awesome value. If you don't crash it at full speed into the ground on your third flight, it will hold up a little bit better in my experience. Thanks for watching. I promise it's over this time.